So at LinkedIn, we are all about starting productive conversations amongst professionals around the issues that matter most. And in the era of Me Too, Time's Up, we haven't heard a lot from members in finance, which is interesting because it's a historically male-dominated industry. So what we really wanted to look at is what's going on here? What are financial professionals saying about these issues? And what we found is that the way that men and women view these issues, the way that entry-level workers as opposed to senior leaders view these issues couldn't be more different.
Have you read Liar's Poker?
Yes.
It's not like that today, right? I mean, things have gotten better, haven't they?
Things have gotten better, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. What we're saying is, what we're hearing from young professionals in the industry is that the nuances of what they're seeing is very different than, say, senior leaders. Senior leaders are saying that things are getting better, but they're not really sure how.
Okay, and so tell me more about this nuance. What doesn't happen? What is it that actually, when they walk in the door, the execution of their day versus what happens to the male is what, and therefore they don't get what?
So I spoke with more than 24 women across the industry, and what they're saying is that whether it is access to promotion, pay, or raises, they're just not seen as much as their male peers. I spoke with one 24-year-old at a boutique firm in California who told me that she's the only woman at her firm. When she walks across the hall, men stare. I spoke to another who said that she had a male boss who said, "I'm not going to give you this choice assignment because you're a woman." She went to HR. HR said, "Okay, we'll talk to your manager." He didn't change his tone. All he did was he said, "I'm just not going to give you this choice assignment." Didn't say it was because of her gender. So it's things like that that are a little bit more nuanced. HR has a harder time picking it up.
That's outright discrimination. To me, I wonder if that's an outlier in the current environment.
Well,
I mean, that's very extreme. You're not getting, I mean, first of all, he's stupid, right? You're not going to get this choice assignment because you're a woman. I mean, who says that out loud, even if they think it? You got to be an idiot.
But I think it's interesting because we really did see this play out in the numbers. It wasn't just a couple of these examples. We saw women saying at 4 times the rate of men that they feel like they're more likely to be excluded from work outings. So whether it's after work drinks or golf,
I saw that stat, but it was only 8% of women. That is a very, very small number. I'll bet 20 years ago, that was 80%. Nobody got invited. Right now, they can all, only 8% of women complain that they're not getting invited to the outings. That's a small
But if you
number.
look at the kinds of networking and the relationships where, you know, what it takes to have the kind of relationship to go and ask for a raise or ask for a promotion, it seems, based on the results of this survey, that there are sort of more of those casual networking opportunities available to men. And then if you also look at this idea of the promotion gap, something that we've seen talked about quite a bit in Silicon Valley, it seems to be playing out here as well. Both men, and there is a percentage of both men and women who say that men are promoted faster than women. So I thought it was interesting that a good chunk of men also say that they see men being promoted faster. It wasn't just the women who were saying.
No, and this is a much more meaningful stat when you get up to numbers like 56% and 37% as opposed to the other one on networking where it's 8% and 4%.
Can I ask a separate question? You guys talked about Me Too at the beginning of this, or at least there was sort of an allusion to Me Too, and the idea that we haven't heard really about Me Too on Wall Street. And I get asked all the time. They say, people say, Andrew, do you think there's going to be a Me Too event, a Harvey Weinstein-like thing that's going to happen on Wall Street? But it hasn't happened, or at least we don't know about it yet. Why do you think that is?
I think that a lot of the leaders in finance are really focused on these issues. We spoke with leaders at Fidelity, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. This isn't news to them. They know that they need more female leaders and they need women talking about these issues. Things like mentoring opportunities, they're thinking about it. And so I think that this isn't an issue that necessarily is blind to them. They know that it's a problem, and so perhaps why we haven't had that moment yet.
Yeah, is it sort of helpful that when we look back, when I started on Wall Street in the early 90s, I met my wife on Wall Street, and she was an anomaly to be on Wall Street. And now you look at the president of 2 of the premier exchanges are women. This has to be changing in a ferocious manner, in my opinion, especially spread from the top down on Wall Street. I think things have to be a little more silver on the horizon versus where we came from.
And the respondents to our survey are optimistic. And most people do believe that there will be change. Men are more optimistic than women are, and leaders are more optimistic that there are going to be change than the rank and file employees. So I think people are hopeful, and I think there are these examples of women now who can be role models for other women. But statistically, the percentage of leaders and senior managers, whether it's at hedge funds or private equity or investment banks, is still relatively small. And especially, it seems like in industries like private equity and hedge funds, the latest statistics is about 10% of the senior executives are female. So that's still relatively small.
And I think it's interesting that you mentioned Stacey Cunningham, because in my reporting, I had several young analysts talk about her, talk about the Sally Krawchecks, the Beth Mooneys of the world, and say, they've done it. Hopefully I can do it as well.
I'm chuckling because I'm back to my original question. Did you read Liar's Poker? I mean, if you read Liar's Poker, that hookers on the trading floor, right? Women being harassed incessantly. I mean, things have changed, right?
Of course, things have changed, but you'd be surprised. I spoke with one major managing director at a firm here in New York who remained anonymous, but what she told me is that she has gone to client meetings in brothels. Another told me that a client of hers had, asked her if she wore a certain pair of shoes to turn him on. So these things still do happen in 2018, but maybe not at quite the frequency.
And
that
it's
meetings in brothels. Okay, I thought it was over.
I didn't even know there were brothels around still.
This is in Asia, let's be clear.
In March, the U.S. banks reported to the UK government about the gender pay gap there. It seems like that's really accelerated the conversation and really put pressure around disclosure and also change. And it seems like the more transparency there is, the more of a force there is going to be for change.
Before we go, how much pushback do you hear from companies on either disclosure for the pay gap or disclosure around sort of how many females they have in a particular group? I mean, when you were reaching out to companies, was there anyone who was just like, no, I don't want to talk to you about this?
So I interviewed Beth Mooney, who's the CEO of KeyBank, which is a bank in the Fortune 500, and I asked her about the pay gap. And what she said was really interesting in terms of solutions is that she'll actually withhold employee bonuses if she notices a discrepancy amongst two different groups in the pay gap. And that's how she decides to figure out how to figure out this issue. And I think that's something that other leaders can really learn from. There are ways that we can work around this that can really advance the conversation. And
a lot of the big banks are starting to really be forthcoming about their diversity numbers. I just have been reading through a lot of these diversity reports. For instance, like Citibank, Citi had this huge report, 2017 diversity report. They talk about their initiatives and then what their statistics are. And so you're going to see this increasingly from all of the banks as their peers start to do it.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.